Hey guys, tonight we're trudging back into the dirt-caked boots of an ancient soldier, the kind who doesn't make it into the songs or statues, because his life is less heroic charge and more chronic trench foot. You open your eyes on the cold, hard ground, and your first thought isn't of glory or honor, it's, why is everything wet? You're lying in a tent. If tent feels too generous, that's fair. It's really just a sagging piece of canvas held up by warped poles and wishful thinking. It leaks when it rains, flaps when it's windy, and smells exactly like what it is. A big fabric burrito full of sweat, grime, and men who haven't bathed since spring. Your breath hangs in the air. It's cold, damp, and you can already hear someone snoring like a dying ox just inches away. The man to your left has his foot wedged under your side like it belongs there. The one on your right is clutching a dagger in his sleep. You consider shifting, but decide that staying still and uncomfortable is better than losing an ear before dawn. This is your morning. No mattress, no alarm clock, no espresso machine humming softly in the corner. Just the groan of your own spine, the creak of leather straps, and the heavy realization that you have another long, possibly fatal day ahead. You sit up, careful not to knock over your tentmate's helmet-turned-chamber pot. It's full. Of something. You don't want to know what. Your blanket slides off, stiff from dried sweat, probably lice-infested, and smelling vaguely like old onions. Your clothes are the same ones you slept in, and marched in, and maybe bled in. Linen, if you're lucky. Wool, if you're less lucky. Either way, they're damp. Always damp. You reach for your sandals or boots, and when you find them, they squelch. You sigh. You slide them on anyway. One of them still has something stuck to the sole. Mud? Animal droppings? Regret? Doesn't matter. There's no privacy, no morning routine, no 5 more minutes. A trumpet blows somewhere outside, off-key and too early, and that's the only alarm you get. It means you're expected to be upright, armed, and at attention before your brain's even finished rebooting. Outside, the camp is already stirring. Men stretch, cough, hawk loogies the size of sparrows. Fires smolder low, and the sky is still a bruised gray. You see steam rising from a cooking pot. Water and grain, again. Maybe with some dried beans. Probably not. Breakfast, if you can call it that, is already on its way to becoming a fond memory you'll lie about to future grandkids. You dip your hands in a basin of water. It's cold. You splash it on your face. It makes no difference. You're still grimy, still tired, but at least you've startled yourself fully awake. Then someone farts loudly from a nearby tent. It's met with a chorus of groans and one slow clap. You tighten the strap on your breastplate, which doesn't quite fit anymore. Either you've shrunk or it's warped. It pinches your ribs. Your sword belt digs into your hip. Your cloak smells like goat. And there's a hole in your tunic the size of a small fruit. You rub your eyes and remember why you're here. Not for honor, not for country, but because you were born into it, or conscripted, or you owed a debt, or maybe someone lied to you about how fun it would be. Whatever the reason, you're not going anywhere. The camp smells like ash, sweat, wet wool, and the unmistakable odor of 50 men all learning to digest pickled turnips at once. You walk carefully, sidestepping puddles that aren't just rainwater. Your commander yells something. It's in your language, sort of. You catch the words for formation, hurry, and cowards. You sigh, grab your gear, and trudge toward the gathering point. Your shield's heavy, splintered, and painted with something that used to be a proud symbol, but now mostly resembles a smeared handprint. Your sword? Dull, You sharpened it with a rock last week, which might have made it worse. Still, it's yours. You fall into line with your unit. No one talks much. You all know each other too well. You've seen them throw up before breakfast, cry over letters from home, and fall asleep mid-meal. At this point, conversation feels redundant. A bird flies overhead and drops something directly onto the shoulder of the guy in front of you. He doesn't react, just mutters, "Again?" and wipes it with his sleeve. You march to the edge of the camp to receive today's orders. There's a speech. It's meant to inspire. It mostly just reminds you that you're expendable. You're told to be ready. For what? No one says. Could be a skirmish. Could be a march. Could be digging trenches all day in rocky soil with a wooden shovel. All are equally painful. As you stand there, trying not to pass out from sleep deprivation, your tent mate leans over and whispers, "I dreamed about bread last night." You nod solemnly. So did you. Someone else mutters, "I miss sitting." Another says, "I miss silence." And a third, "I miss my mother's stew, even the watery kind." You all fall silent again. There's something oddly comforting about shared misery. No one's thriving. Everyone's suffering just enough to feel like a team. The commander yells again, "Time to move." You look back at your tent, floppy, damp, home, and know you'll return to it covered in more mud, with less energy, and probably fewer functional toes. But for now, you shoulder your pack, grip your sword, and march forward. Welcome to camp life. Glory will have to wait. The air outside the camp is crisp, which would be nice, refreshing even, if you weren't wrapped head to toe in what amounts to a slow-cooking iron casserole dish. You're getting dressed for the day, soldier style, and that means armor. Now, armor sounds cool. It looks cool. People centuries later will fawn over it in museums and documentaries, talk about craftsmanship, metallurgy, how majestic it all was. But here, now, in the weak dawn light with your hands still numb from sleep and your back already sore from yesterday's march, it's just heavy, uncomfortable, and extremely uncooperative. You start with your base layers, if you even have them. A linen tunic, maybe a second layer if you're lucky, all of it itchy, stained, and only questionably laundered. It clings in weird places and sags in others. No stretch fabric, no sweat-wicking tech, just you and ancient textile misery. Then comes the real fun. The armor. Let's say you're Roman for a moment. That means lorica segmentata, overlapping iron bands strapped across your torso like someone tried to make a corset out of angry metal rulers. It looks neat in drawings. In reality, it pinches, it clanks, it digs into your collarbones, and if you breathe too hard, it makes a noise like a falling cutlery drawer. You tighten the straps. Not too tight. You don't want to cut off circulation. Not too loose. You don't want to become a tragic cautionary tale halfway through a charge. And then there's the groin protection, which is awkward. A little leather skirt of strips, which somehow manages to protect nothing and still chafe everything. Maybe you're a Greek hoplite instead. That means bronze, lots of it. A bronze cuirass, rigid, hot, and made to fit a man with no belly fat or flexibility. It presses against your ribs, your sternum, your sense of hope. You twist, barely. Your armor does not. And the helmet. Ah yes, a domed chunk of metal you slide over your skull and immediately regret. It's heavy, it's tight, it makes everything echo. You can hear your own heartbeat in there. If someone yells behind you, it sounds like they're shouting from inside your brain. Most helmets offer no padding, just metal on head. You think about how fragile skulls are. You wonder if the dent in your helmet came from a hammer strike or the guy who wore it last accidentally sitting on it. Your vision narrows. Literally. The eye holes were not designed for peripheral anything. You turn your whole head to see someone wave, and the weight makes you over-rotate like a clumsy turtle. Add greaves, metal shin guards that bash your knees every time you crouch. Add arm guards that never seem to stay put. Add a cloak that catches on branches. Add a leather belt that cuts into your waist and makes your tunic ride up just enough to make you hate physics. By the time you're fully suited up, you're not a warrior. You're a walking meat oven. You shift your weight, your shoulders groan, your back already hates you. And the real kicker? You're not even special. You look just like everyone else. Same dull armor, same scratched shield, same distant expression of mild panic. You hear someone nearby grunting, trying to buckle a strap he can't reach. You help him. He thanks you by spitting in the dirt and muttering, "Hope it's a short march." You nod. There is no such thing. Your commander strides by, wearing slightly shinier armor. He's either noble-born or better at flattery. You wonder what it's like to wear armor tailored to fit, not handed down after someone bled out in it. The commander shouts, "Ready?" You don't answer. You just straighten up and try not to drop your sword when your fingers cramp from gripping it too tight. Historians still argue which type of ancient armor offered the best balance of protection and mobility. They debate lamellar versus scale, bronze versus iron, segmented versus solid. You just want to sit down without groaning like a creaky door hinge. And sitting in armor, that's a comedy in itself. You lower yourself slowly, knees locked, back straight, praying nothing pops out of joint. Once you're down, you realize you've sunk slightly into the mud. Great. Now you're stuck. You stand again. Eventually. Next, you check your shield. It's wooden, rimmed with metal, heavier than it looks, and has been hit so many times it rattles when you move. The paint is mostly flaked off. Some soldier drew something crude on the back. You pretend not to notice. The shield strap rubs against your neck, your shoulder, your already bruised collarbone. You shift it again, and again. Nothing helps. And the sword? It's not Excalibur. It's short, stubby, and slightly bent. You used it to pry open a supply crate last week, and it hasn't felt right since. Someone sneezes nearby. You hear the unmistakable jingle of chainmail rustling as another soldier turns to yell, "Cover your mouth, you donkey!" The sneezer shrugs. Can't help it. Armor's itchy. You glance at your arm. Yep. The rash is back. A younger soldier looks up at you and asks, "Does it get easier?" You shake your head slowly. Number, but you get number. He nods like that makes sense. And then, with a jangle and a barked order, the column starts moving, feet stomping, armor clanking, gear bouncing. It sounds like a blacksmith shop falling down a hill. You fall into step. You feel every pound on your shoulders. You taste sweat already. And it's only just past dawn. You're not heroic. You're heavy. You're armored. And you're stuck inside a medieval sardine can until someone tells you otherwise. You shuffle along in formation, your armor groaning with each reluctant step. And that's when it hits you. Breakfast. Or rather, the painful absence of it. Your stomach lets out a noise that sounds like a dying goat and earns a glance from the man marching beside you. He doesn't comment. His belly just echoes in reply. Welcome to the morning meal, a grand feast of disappointment. After an hour of marching, your unit stops by a cluster of carts where something resembling food is being handed out by a man who looks half asleep and entirely done with life. You join the line, nudging your shield into the dirt so you don't tip over from the weight of it. The line moves slowly, and by the time you reach the front, what remains is crusts. The quartermaster drops a slab of hard bread into your hand. It's not stale, it's ancient. It might have been baked during a previous empire. You rap it against your breastplate, and it makes a sound like a drum. This is your breakfast. Maybe, if the gods are smiling, which they usually aren't, there's also a small cloth packet with olives, dried figs, or a smear of goat cheese. But today, just the bread, maybe a drizzle of oil if you beg. No honey, no eggs, no citrus. You haven't seen a fruit with moisture in it since the summer campaign, and even then, it had a worm in it. You sit on a rock, bite down on the bread, and nearly chip a tooth. You chew for a long time. It doesn't soften. You glance over. A younger soldier is soaking his in watered-down wine. Clever. You copy him. The wine is sour, flat, and tastes like a wooden cup that gave up. But it helps. And there's the other luxury of the soldier's diet. Wine. Not fancy wine. Not something with notes of plum or oak forward finish. Just thin, cheap wine in a leather flask. But it's often safer than the water. Because that river you passed earlier definitely has at least one horse carcass in it. You finish your meal and lean back, your stomach half full and half angry. You'll be lucky if that bread makes it all the way down without a fight. But food isn't always this bad. Sometimes if a supply wagon arrives intact and no one stole from it, you might get lentils, or dried salted meat that you soak and boil until it stops being chewy and starts being edible. Still chewy though, just less defiant. Occasionally, there's something called field stew. It's made from whatever's available. A turnip, an onion, a pinch of something green, and if you're lucky, the meat of a rabbit someone ran over by accident. It's warm, at least. But you eat it slowly, because chewing too fast might mean discovering a bit of fur, or worse, gristle from something you really hope wasn't horse. Someone nearby pulls out a bag of grain, roasted wheat kernels. He offers you a handful. You chew them like a squirrel. They stick in your teeth. But for one glorious minute, you're not hungry. And just as you start to settle into a dull, post-bread haze, you hear shouting. Pack up, on your feet. Time to move again. You groan, stand, and shake the crumbs off your tunic. A few ants make a break for it. You don't blame them. You shoulder your pack, stuffed with a few tools, some jerky, maybe a spare tunic if you're rich. You're not. It's not light. Combined with your armor, shield, and weapons, you're easily hauling 60 pounds, and your knees are filing complaints with every step. You fall back into the line, just behind a man with a limp, and in front of a man who sings off-key ballads about fish. He starts one now. You sigh. Some soldiers carry dried herbs or garlic cloves to chew for energy, or to ward off illness. You tried that once. The garlic worked. People stayed far, far away, but your stomach hasn't forgiven you since. You pass a few supply mules tethered to carts. One of them eyes your crust of bread as if judging your life choices. You're not even sure he's wrong. The road stretches ahead, long and dusty. You'll walk for hours before the next stop. Maybe more. There are no rest areas, no vending machines, just rocks, scrubby grass, and the occasional questionable puddle. Somewhere down the line, someone's already throwing up. Probably bad wine, or nerves, or both. You keep walking. Midday comes, and the sun decides it hates you personally. The armor heats up. Your tunic sticks to your back. Your bread crust from this morning is now a rock in your gut. You sip your wine. It burns a little. You wonder if it's killing bacteria or just brain cells. And through it all, you think, you miss plates. You miss forks. You miss food that didn't bite back. Historians still argue whether ancient soldiers were well fed by the standards of their day. Rations were technically enough to survive, but barely. Spoilage, theft, or supply chain disasters meant meals were often skipped or scrounged. Some armies let soldiers forage or even steal from locals. Others punished it with flogging. You've seen both. By the time evening creeps in, you're bone-weary, sunburned, and dreaming of soup. You find a patch of ground and sit again, already regretting it because you'll have to get up soon. You chew another crust of bread, this one slightly moldy. You scrape it, eat it anyway. The fish singer hums again. Your stomach rumbles. It's not grateful. You lie back on your pack and stare at the sky. Tomorrow, maybe there will be beans. Maybe. The road doesn't care that you're tired, or full of half-digested bread, or that your sandals are fraying at the edges and rubbing a new blister the size of a fig into your heel. It just stretches ahead, dry and cracked, winding through forests and hills like it's daring you to keep going. You've been marching for hours, not casually walking, marching. Step in time, gear strapped down, eyes forward, sweat stinging your eyes, and the same dust getting kicked into your face by the guy in front of you over and over again. If you slow down, someone yells. If you stop, someone hits you. Motivation, ancient style. Your pack cuts into your shoulders. Your shield knocks against your leg with each step. Your spear bounces with a rhythm you now hate more than the man who gave it to you. This is the glamour of military life. Blisters, bruises, and back pain. And the noise, constant. Metal clinking, armor groaning, sandals slapping. Somewhere a soldier starts singing again. Same fish song as yesterday. You don't even know what fish are anymore. You just want him to stop. You've got over 60 pounds strapped to your body. Armor, weapons, tools, personal belongings, a bedroll that hasn't rolled properly in weeks, and the haunting weight of existential despair. The Romans even had a nickname for soldiers like you. Muli Mariani, Marius's mules. Because you're basically a pack animal. You carry your entire life on your back and then some. The sun climbs higher. You sweat under your helmet, which now feels like someone is baking bread on your scalp. Your tunic sticks to your skin. Your thighs chafe. Your feet are swollen. Your nose is sunburnt again, even though you tried rubbing ash on it like some of the others swear by. Spoiler, it doesn't work. You pass the time by counting paces, then by losing count and muttering curses under your breath. You start seeing things in the rocks, a face here, a dog there. That's probably fine. Probably. Midway through the afternoon, you cross a stream. It's shallow, but cold. The commander doesn't allow a break, but a few men splash their faces anyway. You dunk your head under briefly and feel like a new person for 6 seconds. Then it's back to the heat, the dust, the endless shuffle. Someone trips. They fall hard. You hear armor hit rock in a very creative string of profanity. They get up slowly, limping. No one helps. Helping slows the line. Slowing the line means punishment for everyone. So he limps in silence. Later, a mule stumbles, and the cart it's pulling tips sideways. Supplies scatter. Sacks of barley. A crate of dried figs. Someone's wine flask. Everyone stares longingly, but no one dares move to grab anything. Two men haul the cart upright while the commander screams about discipline. You trudge onward. You pass a farmhouse. The family inside peers out cautiously, kids hiding behind the wooden doorframe. One soldier waves. The children don't wave back. You don't blame them. You're not the image of safety. You're a tired man in crusty armor with bloodshot eyes and a spear that smells faintly of old onions. You stop once, just long enough to drink from your flask and gnaw on a piece of jerky that's as flexible as a floor tile. You chew slowly. You don't want to know what animal it came from. It could be donkey. It could be someone's old boot. You finish it anyway. By late afternoon, your legs are trembling. You've been marching since sunrise, and now the shadows are starting to stretch across the road. That's your only sign the day might be ending. Finally, mercifully, you arrive. Tonight, you're camping in an open field just off the road. There's no village here, just grass, stones, and the distant sound of wolves. Not howling, just existing, close enough to make you nervous. You collapse onto the ground. No tents yet. No fires. First, you dig a ditch. Standard Roman practice. Defensive ditch around the camp perimeter, because nothing says rest like digging a trench after walking 20 miles in iron socks. You grab a shovel, really just a pointed stick, and stab at the earth. It's rocky, dry, your hands blister. You sweat buckets. The trench grows slowly, painfully. Around you, dozens of other soldiers are doing the same. Silent, miserable. Some muttering. One crying softly. You pretend not to notice. Only when the ditch is done are you allowed to set up camp. You hammer in tent stakes with a rock, tie down corners with bits of fraying rope. It flaps in the wind, but it'll do. You take off your armor piece by piece. Each part leaves a mark, a red stripe, a bruise, an itch you didn't notice until now. Your shoulders are raw. Your back feels twisted. You lie down for a moment, then groan because your hip lands on a rock the size of a squirrel. You sit up again and laugh, a dry, exhausted laugh. The man next to you joins in. You're not sure what you're laughing at, maybe everything. Dinner is more of the same. Hard bread, beans, maybe a sliver of dried fish if someone bribed the cook. You chew in silence, staring into the low fire. A moth flits by. Someone tells a joke. No one laughs, but not because it wasn't funny. You're just too tired. Historians still argue about how far soldiers marched in a day. 20 miles, more, less. What's certain is this: it was far, too far, and they did it often, on bad roads, in worse shoes, with packs that would make modern hikers weep. As night settles, you crawl into your tent, still dressed, muscles screaming. You lie there, blinking at the sagging ceiling, and whisper a prayer for soft ground. You get a root in your back instead. The night air is sharp, not cold enough to kill, just cold enough to make your joints ache and your nose run. You try to wrap your threadbare cloak tighter around your shoulders, but the wind finds every gap, like it's hunting for the exact part of your body you forgot to cover. Sleep isn't rest, not here, not for ancient soldiers. You lie on your back in the tent, or under the stars if you drew the short straw tonight, and every inch of you throbs from the march. But it's not just the pain that keeps you awake. It's the fear, not dramatic fear, just a steady hum of low-level dread. Because there's no real security here. You've dug your ditch. You've posted sentries. But you know, everyone knows, that if an enemy wants to hit you at night, they'll find a way. And it won't be a duel at dawn. It'll be knives in the dark, a scream, and then nothing. So you sleep lightly, half listening, always tense. One hand on your weapon, one eye half open. Every branch that cracks nearby becomes a footstep. Every cough makes you reach for your shield. You're not even the only thing trying to kill you out here. The rats are bold. They scurry across your legs, chewing through whatever they find. Bags, cloaks, a man's boot if he sleeps too long. You saw one crawl over a sleeping man's face once. He didn't wake up. Probably a blessing. And the bugs. Oh, the bugs. Mosquitoes, ticks, mites. Each one a tiny flying regret. There's no repellent, no ointment, no bite cream. You scratch until you bleed, and then you scratch some more. Your forearms are a patchwork of scabs and dirt. You gave up caring last week. Nature calls around midnight. Of course it does. You sigh, crawl out of your blankets, and shuffle off to the nearest acceptable patch of scrub. If you're in a Roman camp, you head to the latrine trench, which is really just a long ditch with some sticks for balance. If you're not Roman, congratulations. You get a bush. Maybe. You crouch in the dark, shield slung over your shoulder, hoping no one is watching, and that the next gust of wind doesn't knock you sideways into your own mess. You use leaves, or a scrap of linen, or, if you're lucky, the communal sponge on a stick, which, in theory, is rinsed in vinegar. In practice, it's iffy. Quirky tidbit. Roman soldiers did use sponges attached to sticks for cleaning after doing their business. Communal sponges, shared, like a horrible group project you never wanted to join. You finish quickly, half from shame, half from freezing. On your way back, your foot sinks into something soft. You don't look. You already know. You crawl back into your bedding, shivering. You tuck your face into your cloak, which smells like sweat and smoke. Your knees throb. Your toes are numb. Someone nearby is snoring in a way that suggests a collapsed lung. Someone else is whispering prayers, or curses, possibly both. You drift into sleep, finally, but it doesn't last. Because just before dawn, the horn blows. It's not a pleasant wake-up call. It's not melodic. It's just loud, flat, and terrible. And it means, get up now, or someone will hit you with a stick. You groan and sit up. Your face is crusted with whatever you drooled into the dirt. Your fingers are stiff. Your spine feels like it lost a fight with a catapult. You scrape the frost, or condensation, or sorrow, off your helmet and start suiting up again. Your armor is still cold, still damp. You slide it on like a coffin lid. You don't even bother complaining anymore. You eat whatever's left from yesterday, a chunk of bread you saved in your pouch, now as soft as a roof tile. You chew it slowly, staring at nothing. Around you, the camp shuffles to life. The fire's down to coals. The cook pot has dried bean paste clinging to the bottom like it's part of the design. Someone curses as they find their greave is missing. Someone else says the mules broke loose. Again. You help pack up the tent, which involves tying knots with fingers that don't want to bend. You roll the canvas, barely, then lift it onto the supply cart. It's heavier today. Or maybe you're weaker. There's no time for anything else. No stretching, no conversation. Just one last tug of your shield strap and the slow shuffle back into formation. Because today, you march again. But tonight, you might get to sleep all the way to morning, if the rats let you, if the wind doesn't freeze your nose shut, if the latrine trench doesn't overflow, if the guy next to you doesn't snore directly into your soul, and if nobody decides to stab you before sunrise. All in all, not a bad night by ancient standards. The horns are still echoing in your ears when the orders start coming, barked out in a dozen dialects, none of them concerned with your comfort. Your legs ache, your stomach is mostly air, and your armor's digging into a fresh spot on your shoulder you didn't know could bruise. But it doesn't matter. You've got drills today. Again, you don't know who decided that after 20 miles of marching and a night of rodent roulette, what soldiers really need is another round of training. But here you are, being herded into formation under the watchful eyes of men who haven't smiled since they grew their first chin hair. The drill yard, if it can be called that, is a patch of dry, uneven ground with just enough pebbles to guarantee a twisted ankle if you're not careful. You form up, the commander paces, and then the shouting begins. Shields up, spears forward, advance, step, thrust, repeat. It's not glamorous, it's barely organized. You're jammed shoulder to shoulder with 50 other men, most of whom smell like turnip stew and half-dried sweat. Your helmet slips slightly every time you swing your arm. Your fingers are blistered. The weight of your shield is now less a physical burden and more of a permanent identity. Your formation, let's say you're a Roman or Greek, is built on tight, synchronized movement. It looks impressive when done right, but when you're in the middle of it, it feels like trying to do yoga while holding a car door. Someone steps out of sync and catches the edge of your shield in their face. You hear a grunt and a curse. They'll have a black eye. You keep moving. Now comes the rotation drill. Forward, strike, shield wall, step back. Over and over. Your knees burn. Your neck cramps. You lose count somewhere after 20. It doesn't matter. You'll do it until the commander's bored or the sun sets. You pause briefly and glance up. The commander is seated beneath a tarp, sipping watered wine, giving the occasional nod of approval like he personally invented the spear. He hasn't touched a real one in years. Next is sparring. They pair you with someone bigger than you, because of course they do. He grins. You sigh. You raise your shield. He doesn't wait. His wooden training sword cracks against the top of your helm and makes your ears ring. You stumble, catch yourself, and push back, smacking him square in the chest. He grunts, recovers, and sweeps your legs. You go down. The ground is hard. The grass is sharp. You taste blood. Not much, just a whisper of it on your tongue, and roll over with a groan. A voice nearby says, "Get up." You do. You always do. Drills go on. They always do. Somewhere nearby, a younger recruit pukes from the heat. Someone else pulls a muscle trying to throw a javelin. A third simply sits down and refuses to get back up. That's fine. He'll get lashed later. Motivation comes in many forms. And don't even get started on shield formations. They show you how to lock them, side by side, tight as bricks in a wall. You do it again, and again. You hold the shield while people hit it with sticks. You flinch. The commander yells at you not to flinch. You try again. Your arm goes numb. Eventually, your shield arm is no longer an arm. It's a hot, buzzing block of meat dangling from your shoulder like a sausage on a string. You consider switching hands, but you're right-handed and left useless, so you just suffer. Now comes the favorite part, the mock charge. Line up. Deep breath. Sprint forward, screaming at the top of your lungs while trying not to trip over your own feet or the guy who just dropped his sword in front of you. You're told to yell for glory. But by the time you're 10 steps in, you're mostly just yelling for air. You slam into the practice dummies, wooden poles stuffed with straw and shame. You thrust your spear. You raise your shield. You pretend you're fighting someone who wants to kill you. The truth is, if this were real, you'd already be on the ground. Because that's what ancient battle was. Chaos. You've heard the veterans talk. When the fighting starts, forget everything, one of them told you. Just keep your shield up and swing at anything that moves. Historians still argue about the effectiveness of battle formations once combat began. Were they maintained, abandoned, mutated into smaller brawls? From the way your foot slipped and your helmet turned sideways just now, you're guessing it was mostly chaos. After an hour of this, the signal sounds. Drill's over. You drop to the ground like a sack of grain. Your shield lands with a dull thud. Your tunic is soaked through. Your sword arm is trembling. Your thighs scream when you move them. And yet, you made it through another drill without dying or crying. Barely. You close your eyes for a moment and feel something crawl up your leg. You don't even react. Later, when you return to your tent, you notice the tip of your spear is chipped. Again. You file it down with a bit of stone, even though your fingers are too sore to grip it right. You wipe your brow and glance at your hands, calloused, raw, cracked. You can't even remember what soft skin feels like anymore. You lie down for just a second, just to rest your eyes. Then someone shouts, "Form up! Inspection!" Of course. You groan, stand, and pull your gear on again. Because whether it's real combat or just pretend, the drills never stop. And neither do you. You hear it before you see it. A low, rumbling kind of sound, like 1,000 pots boiling over or a stampede heard from underwater. You sit up, fast. Your heart thumps. No one needs to say anything. You already know. Today, it's real. No more drills. No more practice dummies stuffed with straw. This is combat. Your commander shouts orders, loud, sharp, rehearsed. You barely register the words. Your body moves on memory. Armor straps tighten, shield lifted, spear ready. You glance at the man beside you. His hands are shaking. So are yours. You line up, shoulder to shoulder, shield to shield. It's the same formation you've practiced 100 times, but this time the air is different, thicker. You can smell it, the mix of sweat, oil, horse dung, fear. And then, across the field, they appear. The enemy. They're not glowing with evil. They're not monstrous or misshapen. They look like you. Just in different colors, different tunics, different banners. Some of them are scratching their heads or fumbling with their weapons. You wonder if they feel the same fear. You hope they feel more. Then the horn blows again. It starts. You advance, slowly at first. One step, then another. The ground trembles. Not from them, from you. From hundreds of men marching in unison, boots pounding earth, armor clanking like a chorus of anvils. Your teeth rattle. Then the pace quickens. You shout. You don't know what. Just noise. A roar to fill the gap between you and what's coming. And then, impact. You slam into them like a storm. Shields crash. Spears jab. Someone to your right screams. You barely have time to react. You thrust your spear. Feel resistance. Feel it catch. Pull back. Then push again. You don't look at faces. Faces are dangerous. Faces are too human. It's noise. So much noise. Screams. Steel. The thud of bodies hitting earth. Someone falls near your feet. You step over him. Or on him. You can't tell. Your shield takes a hit. A hard one. Your arm jolts. You twist, jab blindly. Something connects. You think. There's blood. Somewhere. Maybe yours. Then someone grabs your shoulder, hard. You spin. It's one of your own. His helmet's missing, his nose is broken, and he's shouting something you don't hear. You nod anyway and push forward together. You slip on blood-slick grass. You get up. Your wrist is throbbing. Someone screams behind you. A man runs past without a weapon. Another lunges forward, swinging wildly. You duck. Your helmet slides halfway off. And suddenly, just like that, it ends. Or it pauses. It's hard to tell. The horn blows again. The enemy pulls back. Your commander yells for the formation to hold. You do. You stand there, panting. Your spear is gone. You don't remember losing it. Your shield is cracked. Your face is smeared with something. Mud, blood, both. Your hands shake. The battlefield is a mess. Men groaning, some not moving. Weapons scattered, shields splintered. The grass is red now. The air smells like iron and bile. You drop to your knees, retching. It's not from disgust exactly. It's your body finally realizing what just happened. That it could have ended. That you barely got through it. Someone passes you a flask. You drink without asking what's in it. It burns all the way down. You don't care. There's no cheering, no high fives, no victory song. Just silence, tired, stunned silence. You walk among the fallen, carefully, respectfully. You try not to look at faces. Some are familiar. Others were enemies. One man clutches a wound on his thigh and sobs softly. Another stares blankly at the sky, unmoving. Historians still argue about what ancient combat was really like. Some say it was tactical and organized. Others insist it was chaos and raw luck. Today, it felt like drowning with your eyes open. You find your spear again. It's cracked, splintered, still sticky. You clean it off with a scrap of cloth and don't think too hard about what you're wiping away. The commander calls you back into line. He says you fought well, says the enemy retreated, says the gods were with you. You just feel tired. So tired. You limp back to camp. Someone pats your shoulder. You flinch. You wash your hands. The water turns brown. You wipe your face and stare at the reflection in a dented helmet. You look older. Not in years. In weight. You saw things today you'll try very hard not to remember. That night, there's a small fire. A quiet meal. Some bread. A bit of wine. You chew slowly. You don't taste anything. One man starts humming a tune, a slow one, sad but familiar. Others join in softly, the kind of song that doesn't ask for harmony, just presence. You lie down beside your shield. You pull your cloak up to your chin. Your hands still shake. Your heartbeat echoes in your ears. And for the first time in days, you fall asleep quickly, not from comfort, from exhaustion. You wake up groaning, not from nightmares, though you had a few, but from the very real, very physical ache pulsing through your ribs, arms, legs, and somewhere deeper, like your soul got bruised too. Your whole body feels like a door someone's been slamming all night. You sit up, slowly. That was your first real battle yesterday. Your reward? Half a night of sleep on a rock and a new collection of bruises in places you didn't know could bruise. The morning air is wet. Cold mist clings to your armor and soaks into your cloak. You shift and immediately regret it. Your hip protests. Your shoulder mutters threats. Your ankle? It's swollen like a boiled onion. You move it. Carefully. Still works. Barely. You get to your feet. The camp is quiet in a heavy sort of way. No drills this morning. No shouting. Just the occasional cough or the soft creak of a leather strap being adjusted. Everyone's sore. Everyone's tired. Breakfast is a scoop of lukewarm bean mush. You eat it without looking at it. You chew, then swallow. Then chew again because that last bite was more rock than bean. Then you look around for your sleeping spot because your tent is gone. Or more likely, the wind picked it up during the night and dragged it halfway to the tree line. You find it, eventually, crumpled, wet, useless. You sigh. And just when you think you might sneak in one more sit down, you hear it. A high-pitched squeak, then a scuttle. You freeze. You've learned this sound. You know it well. Rats. One of the many joys of camp life. These furry, plague-carrying sleep interrupters have made themselves at home in your supplies, your boots, your bedding, and very possibly your armor. You shake out your tunic, and one falls out with a thud and a squeal. You jump. It runs. You both pretend the moment didn't happen. You go check your food pouch. They've chewed a hole clean through the bottom. Your last piece of dried meat is gone. You find the wrapper. You do not find the meat. You sigh again. Then, the worst discovery. Your chamber pot, or whatever passes for one in your part of the camp, has tipped over. Not just tipped, spilled, everywhere, including your only spare tunic, which you now eye with a special kind of grief. You pick it up anyway. Shake it out. Try not to gag. You've officially reached the part of soldier life where dignity has packed its bags and wandered off into the forest. And if the rats and spilled pot weren't enough, now it's time for lice check. That's right. You gather with a few others in a corner of camp, sit down on a log, and begin the grim ritual of combing through each other's hair and seams for tiny unwelcome passengers. One man finds 2 in his collar. Another finds 5 in his blanket. You stop counting at 7. They're everywhere. You squish them between your fingernails, one by one. You've gotten weirdly good at it. Quirky tidbit. Ancient soldiers often shared delousing duty. Roman troops called it nitpicking, and it was surprisingly social, like a terrible barbershop mixed with pest control. Then comes the best part, hygiene, or lack thereof. Bathing is not on the schedule today, or tomorrow, or maybe ever. You haven't washed properly in weeks. The closest you've come is standing in a stream while your tent mate threw cold water at your armpits with a ladle. You take out a cloth, scratchy, threadbare, slightly damp, and wipe your face. Then your arms. Then your underarms, where the smell is. Active. You rub some herbs under each arm. It doesn't help. It just makes you smell like sweaty rosemary. You check your socks if you're lucky enough to have them. They're damp. You wring them out. Something small falls out. You don't investigate. You go to put on your boots. One is filled with mud. The other has something worse. You dump both out, shake them, and slide your feet in. They squish. You mutter something impolite to the gods. Then, just as you're ready to sit down for 5 minutes and feel sorry for yourself, a supply runner arrives. New orders, new route, new march. You groan so loudly it scares the mule. Before you leave, you look around camp. The tents are sagging, the fire pits are cold. A man nearby is still asleep on a rock. You nudge him with your boot. He grunts, sits up, and says, "I dreamed I was home." You nod. You did too. Historians still argue whether camps like this were organized and efficient, or chaotic and disease-ridden. The truth is, they were probably both. Roman camps were famously regimented. Ditches, fences, tent rows like a military grid. But disease? That showed up anyway. You can dig all the trenches you want, but rats can climb. And then, just before leaving, someone screams. You turn. A rat. In someone's bag. Again. You don't even flinch this time. You just grab your gear and shuffle off, feet dragging, shoulders sagging, soul hovering somewhere between resignation and a very slow mutiny. Tonight, maybe you'll sleep without waking up to tiny claws on your chest. But probably not. The sun is dipping low, casting a soft orange across the battered road as you drag your feet into the next camp. You're sore. You're filthy. You smell like boiled onions and fear. But you've made it through the day without falling into a ditch or getting poked by a javelin. A victory. You want to lie down. Really. Right there in the grass. But before you even set down your pack, a voice pipes up, "Where have you been?" You blink. It's one of the older veterans, arms crossed, standing in front of a cooking fire. You recognize him. Scruffy beard, permanent frown, and a gift for sarcasm so sharp it could cut through your armor. You say nothing. He smirks. Missed all the fun. Turns out your tent mate tried to cheat at dice. Again. Ah. The camp gossip gauntlet begins. You try to step around him, but it's too late. Others are circling, like vultures who traded feathers for cloaks and swords. No one's got a phone. No one has a hobby. And so everyone's entertainment revolves around each other's misfortunes. "I heard he tried to palm a bone die," someone says. "No," says another. "He claimed the gods made him roll 2 6s. "Probably thought Jupiter owed him a favor," the veteran scoffs. You sit down, sigh, and take a swig of wine. The gossip spreads like fire. You hear about a soldier who walked into a tree because he fell asleep marching. One who insulted a centurion's sandals, allegedly cursed. Another who claimed he saw a ghost near the latrine trench. That one might have been true. You've seen some things near that trench. Someone claims the cook is watering down the stew with rain puddles. Someone else says a mule gave birth in the middle of inspection. The best part? No one knows if any of it's true. But that doesn't stop the stories. This is how soldiers stay sane. Talking, mocking, inventing drama in a place where life is otherwise a gray loop of marching, aching, and sleeping in wet socks. But there's a darker edge, too. The whispers. Like that one soldier, Jado something, who went missing 2 nights ago. No one talks about it too loud, just eyes darting, heads lowering. Deserted, one man mutters. Taken, says another. Scouts saw signs near the woods. Wolves? Someone asks. Not the 4-legged kind, comes the answer. You shiver. Because sometimes the gossip is a warning, a test, a way of seeing who's still paying attention and who might be next. Your name might come up tomorrow. Maybe you snored too loudly. Maybe you forgot to clean your boots. Maybe someone just doesn't like the way you chew. It doesn't matter. Once the talking starts, it never stops. Still, you laugh. Because some of it is funny. The soldier who fell in love with a merchant's daughter but was actually wooing her aunt. The guy who made shoes out of his saddle. The one who challenged a goat to a staring contest. Lost. Quirky fact, Roman camps actually had a post called the camp snoop, a low-ranking officer whose job was to report idle talk, complaints, and signs of desertion. Think ancient HR, but with more floggings. Then comes the drama patrol, a pair of junior officers doing their evening walk, trying to look stern while eavesdropping. You all quiet down, pretending to inspect your armor or pick at dinner. The moment they pass, someone loudly whispers, "Nice sandals," and everyone snickers like children who just got away with something. It's not always harmless. Sometimes a rumor gets someone reassigned, or worse. You remember a man who joked that the general's horse had a limp. He was cleaning latrines with a toothbrush by morning. Still, there's a rhythm to it. Gossip here is survival. It's a language, a pressure valve, a way of making sense of the senseless. Because you can't talk about the man who died next to you yesterday. Not yet. That's too fresh. But you can talk about the man who fell asleep mid-step and woke up in a drainage ditch with his boots on backward. That's allowed. You finish your meal, mostly barley paste and a bit of dried fig, and lean back, letting the night chatter wash over you. Someone's making up a new nickname for the guy who tripped over a chicken. Someone else is swearing they saw a god in the clouds. You lie down, wrap yourself in your cloak, and listen. Tonight, you're not a soldier. You're just part of the background buzz, a name in a conversation, a possible punchline. You close your eyes. But just before sleep, you whisper to no one. Jado definitely saw something. And no one disagrees. The morning hits differently this time. No horns, no urgent shouting, just the steady clang of a small bell. Church call, or more accurately, chapel trench duty, as some call it behind the priest's back. Today is a holy day. Not a rest day. Not really. Just a different kind of obedience. Instead of marching or stabbing straw men, you're meant to kneel, chant, and contemplate your sin count. You rise slowly, joints snapping like twigs. You wipe the crust from your eyes and sit for a moment, staring into the vague middle distance where faith and fatigue blur into the same expression. Then, you start layering on the usual. Tunic, belt, cloak. No armor today. Thank the gods. Or, well, God, singular. You file into the worship area with the others. It's not a grand cathedral. It's a roped-off space with a worn altar stone, maybe a crude wooden cross or idol depending on the local customs and which part of the ancient world you're trudging through today. And then comes the sermon. The priest, white-robed, stern, eyes like boiling water, begins to speak in long, sweeping phrases. Latin, Greek, Aramaic, Old Church, whatever. You try to follow. You do. For the first few minutes, your head nods in all the right places. Your lips mumble along with the prayers. But your knees are already regretting the wooden plank you're kneeling on. You shift. You glance sideways. You scratch an itch. You think about cheese. Then suddenly, the priest points a finger and says something about fire, sin, and eternal punishment. Right. You're back. You glance up at the sun. Still early. The sermon isn't even halfway done. You look around. Some soldiers are deeply devout, eyes closed, lips moving, hearts heavy with guilt and 100 battlefield regrets. Others, they're just here because attendance is mandatory. You see one guy picking his nose reverently. Another is mouthing the words to an old drinking song, cleverly synced to the rhythm of the Psalms. Still, Everyone acts pious when the priest walks by. You bow your head, whisper your Amen. Try to appear washed. You're not. After the sermon, you're invited, expected, to confess. You shuffle forward when it's your turn. The priest leans in, ready to hear your catalog of failures. What do you say? That you thought about deserting? That you cursed the gods during the last march? That you secretly hate half your unit and occasionally wish they'd fall into a trench? You settle for, I got angry, and I drank wine that wasn't mine. The priest sighs. Classic. He gives you a penance, maybe 3 prayers, maybe latrine duty. It's a gamble. You nod and step aside. One man in front of you says nothing for 10 full seconds, then blurts, I stole a fish. He doesn't elaborate. Quirky tidbit. In some periods, soldiers carried little confession tokens, proof they'd purged their sins before battle. Some traded them like lucky charms or used them to get extra rations. Holiness, meet hustle. Next is song. It starts low, just a hum. Then it swells. Soldiers singing is always strange. These are men who screamed war cries yesterday, now harmonizing about divine mercy and everlasting peace. You can't help but wonder if the gods laugh at the irony. Still, you sing, because it's the one moment no one's yelling, bleeding, or dying. Your voice blends into the sea of rough, scratchy tones, and somehow it sounds okay. You close your eyes. For just a moment, it feels like something is lifted off your shoulders. Then the priest starts talking about hell again. Ah, there it is. A full list of things that will land you there. Greed, pride, lust, sleeping through sermons, stepping on sacred bugs, laughing at your officer's haircut. You nod solemnly, not because you agree, but because your back hurts and you're trying not to fall asleep. Historians still argue whether religion in ancient armies was truly heartfelt or just enforced. Truth is, it was both. Some soldiers clung to faith like a lifeline. Others used it as camouflage. But everyone knew the rules, the rituals, the expectations. After the service, you're allowed to approach the holy man for a blessing. You kneel. He touches your forehead, says something ancient and gentle. You stand again and feel something. Relief? Or just the satisfaction of getting through it without getting smacked? Now it's time for the real soul-crushing part. Moral lectures. An officer takes over, standing tall and smug, holding a scroll he can barely read. He lectures about loyalty, honor, duty, brotherhood. He mentions glory 6 times. You've counted. Not once does he mention the rats, the rain, or how it feels to drag a wounded friend through mud. You clap politely, because that's the only acceptable response. The rest of the day is slow. Reflective, they call it. You're told to meditate, to pray, to write, if you're literate. You carve something into a bit of wood instead. Not words, just lines, even lines. Something your brain can focus on that isn't the image of yesterday's battlefield. Evening comes. You gather around a small fire. One man says a prayer before the meal. Another thanks the gods for beans not burned. You eat quietly. The conversation is gentle, a soft murmur of memories and half-jokes. You lie down early. The stars blink overhead, cold and distant. The fire crackles. Someone snores. Someone whispers a final prayer into the wind. You close your eyes, arms folded over your chest like a statue in a forgotten chapel. And for the first time in weeks, you dream of something peaceful. You awaken to the smell of damp canvas and the distant grumble of thunder. There's a heavy stillness in the air, like the world is holding its breath. You sit up slowly and realize, yes, it's raining. Again. But this isn't the kind of gentle patter that makes you want to snuggle into a warm blanket. This is a sideways, sheet-blasting, armor-drenching downpour that turns camps into soup and men into angry, walking mildew. Your tent leaks. Of course it does. You curl your legs up to avoid the spreading puddle that now owns the lower half of your bedroll. Your cloak is soaked through. Your boots, forgotten outside, are probably halfway to drowning. You step out into the storm, squinting through the curtain of water. The whole camp is shuffling around like a herd of soggy ghosts. Cloaks flapping, gear slipping, mud sucking at every step like it's trying to keep you forever. This is the kind of weather that ruins everything. Maps blur, arrows warp. Fires sputter out before you can even boil water for breakfast. Someone's latrine trench has flooded, again. And now the downhill side of camp smells like regret. You start your day trying to salvage your gear. First, the boots. You retrieve them from a shallow pool and dump out the contents. It's not just water. There's a frog. He hops away. You don't blame him. Next, your pack. You check your food rations. Bread, mushy. Jerky, wet leather now. Cheese, gone. Probably rat heisted in the night. You nibble a bean you found in your pocket. Not proud, just hungry. And then, the real enemy appears. Mud. Not just slippery mud. Ancient, soul-consuming bog mud that grabs your ankles and yanks like an angry toddler. You try to walk, you lose a sandal, you backtrack, you pull it out, your sock stays behind. You sigh deeply, questioning every life choice that led you here. The commander calls for morning assembly. You arrive late, dripping and looking like a swamp ghoul. So does everyone else. There's no punishment. No one has the energy. You stand in a shivering mass of metal and misery, while your superior reads from a scroll that's already melting in his hands. Someone sneezes. Loud, everyone flinches. It's flu season in the ancient world, or maybe just a cold, or maybe the kind of cough that turns into something permanent. You've seen it happen. A guy gets a little sick, keeps marching, keeps fighting, keeps sleeping under wet blankets, and then he doesn't get back up one morning. No hospitals here, no warm soup and motherly concern, just herbal teas made from suspicious leaves and whatever someone thinks might help, which today is a paste of garlic, onion, and something that smells like horse. It does not help. Quirky tidbit. Some ancient armies used garlic and wine as rudimentary medicine, antibacterial-ish, and definitely memorable. They also used honey on wounds, and occasionally cow dung. You try not to think about that last one. You're assigned sentry duty today, in the rain, which means you stand, hood pulled low, cloak plastered to your back, watching an empty stretch of road while your teeth chatter in rhythm. Nothing happens, for hours. Just wind, rain, and the occasional bird that seems way too comfortable in this weather. You invent little games to pass the time, count puddles, name passing clouds. Try not to imagine your toes falling off from trench foot. You think about fire, about dry socks, about soup, none of which exist anymore. Probably never did. By the time your shift ends, you're drenched to the marrow. You return to camp to find your tent mate trying to light a fire under an overturned shield. It's not going well. Smoke curls up into his face. He coughs. You cough. You stare at each other for a second, then both laugh, because at this point, why not? Dinner is cold. You hold your bowl like a tiny heater and eat slowly, imagining each bite as warm stew. It's not. It's gritty beans, with a hint of something crunchy. You stop chewing. You don't ask. Someone nearby is wringing out their socks. The water comes out brown. You pretend not to notice. Another soldier mutters, "My bones are wet." You nod. Yours too. Historians still argue about how ancient soldiers coped with weather, whether camps had proper drainage, how tents were sealed, if cloaks were oiled for waterproofing. You can confirm, whatever the answer, it wasn't good enough. The worst part? There's no way to get dry, not really. You can hang your cloak, but it just absorbs the next round of mist. You can huddle by the fire, but the smoke stains everything. And the moment you move, you're wet again. It's a loop, a cruel, soggy loop. You end the day with cold fingers, damp sleeves, and the creeping sense that your immune system is writing its resignation letter. You try to find the driest spot in your tent, there isn't one, and curl up, shivering under your cloak, which now smells like wet goat and scorched onions. You close your eyes. It's still raining, and in your dreams, it rains there too. Your mouth feels like sandpaper soaked in regret. You sit up, blinking at the light creeping in through the edge of the tent. Something's wrong. Not dramatically wrong. No one's screaming. No horns are blowing. But something off. Then it hits you. Your jaw, it hurts. Deep, sharp, unrelenting. You run your tongue along your teeth, cautiously. One of them, upper left, sends a lightning bolt through your skull the moment you touch it. You wince. You actually groan. Not battle pain, not sword wound. Number toothache. And in the ancient world, that's basically a death sentence. You stagger out of your tent like a wounded deer, hunched over and clutching your cheek. The pain's not just annoying, it's consuming. Every heartbeat pulses through your tooth. Every movement jars it. It's a tiny rebellion in your face, and it's winning. You ask around, quietly, embarrassed. Anyone got anything? For this, you gesture to your face like it's a foreign object. One guy shrugs. Chew garlic, he offers. Another suggests holding cold water in your mouth. Someone just says, hope it falls out. You consider all three. Finally, you approach the medic, or whatever passes for one out here. He's got a table covered in herbs, bones, strips of cloth, and a mysterious black paste he applies to literally everything. He looks up and nods when you point to your jaw. Ah, he says, with too much interest. Bad tooth. You nod, carefully, slowly. He leans in, peers into your mouth like it's a cave he's mapping. Then he taps the tooth with a piece of wood. You yelp. Loud. He nods again, very seriously. Yep. Bad. You sit, feeling small. Then he holds up a pair of tongs. Not dental tools. Just tongs. Iron. Rusty. Thick. You're not sure if they're for extracting teeth or horseshoes. You raise your hand. Wait. What are you doing? He shrugs. Pull it, unless you like the pain. You don't, but you like that less. He offers you some wine. You take it. All of it. Then he wedges the tongs into your mouth. No sedative, no anesthetic, just clamped jaws, squinting eyes, and one man with too much confidence and too few qualifications. He pulls. It doesn't work. He resets. You whimper. He pulls again, This time, the pain explodes like a kicked beehive behind your eyes. You grip the sides of the table. You feel everything. The tear, the twist, the crack. You black out for a moment. Not long, just long enough to wish you hadn't woken up. But it's out. He holds it up like a trophy. "See?" he says, smiling. You don't respond. You're busy bleeding into a rag that smells faintly of mildew and mint leaves. Quirky tidbit. Ancient dentistry was wildly improvised. Romans used a mix of herbs and prayers. In medieval Europe, tooth pain was sometimes blamed on toothworms, so they'd burn herbs and direct the smoke at your mouth to chase them out. You spend the rest of the day feeling like you've been punched in the face by history itself. Your cheek swells, your speech slurs. Everything tastes like iron and sadness. But the worst part? You still have to do your chores. There's no sick day for a pulled tooth. You haul water, sort firewood, sharpen spears. Each jolt of movement sends a fresh bolt of agony through your head. People try not to look at your face. It's puffed up like a bread roll. Someone calls you ham cheek. It sticks. You eat nothing at dinner. Just sip lukewarm wine and suck on a piece of wet bread like a sad medieval baby. You feel the gap in your mouth constantly. Tongue won't leave it alone. It's weird, raw, wrong. And oh, here comes another soldier, limping over with his own dental issue. Broken tooth, from a sparring accident. He's holding half of it in a cloth, looking like he just found a cursed artifact. You both exchange a long, wordless look. No one says it, but you both know. Your mouths are ruined forever. Historians still argue whether ancient armies had proper medical protocols. Some did. The Romans had medici, trained field medics. Others just had old guys with knives and confidence. Either way, there was no Novocaine, no antibiotics, no follow-up care. Just clove oil if you were lucky, and prayers if you weren't. You lie down early that night, jaw throbbing, head pounding, one hand cradling your cheek like it might fall off without supervision. The soldier beside you whispers, "Still hurt?" You grunt softly. He hands you a small cloth pouch. Inside, a sliver of honeycomb. "It helps," he says. You chew it gently on the good side of your mouth. And for a moment, the sweetness almost distracts you from the pulsing hole where your tooth used to be. Almost. You're lined up at the edge of camp, helmet tucked under one arm, sword sheathed, stomach rumbling louder than the morning drum roll. It's payday. Or at least, it's supposed to be. Once every few weeks, maybe longer depending on the weather, the mood of the empire, and whether the paymaster remembered your name, your unit gathers for the great ritual of not getting the money you were promised. There's an energy in the air, cautious hope mixed with bitter realism. No one's smiling, but there's a certain brightness behind the eyes, like a gambler watching the dice roll. You wait your turn. One man steps up, says his name, his rank, and his campaign code. The paymaster, a deeply tired man with ink-stained fingers and a scroll that's seen better centuries, squints down at his list. Not on here. The man protests. "Maybe next time," says the paymaster, already motioning for the next in line. Classic. You step forward. You give your information. He finds your name. You breathe. Just a little. He reaches into the chest beside him, counts out a few coins, and plinks them into your hand. The sound is hollow. You stare. That's it? A small, sad pile of copper. barely enough for a decent loaf of bread, let alone new gear or that pipe you've been eyeing at the quartermaster's stall. And of course, the deductions begin. Camp maintenance fee, the paymaster says, plucking one coin back. Medical services, there goes another. Armor wear and tear, he adds, while you glare at your bent helmet like it asked for this. You blink. What remains in your hand is more symbolic than useful. Next, the man mutters. You step away, clutching your little pile, unsure whether to laugh, cry, or bite the coin and hope it shatters in protest. Some soldiers, especially the clever ones, have learned to game the system. Trade, gamble, bribe. One guy makes little carvings from bone and sells them as blessed talismans. Another one sharpens blades on the side for silver tips. You might just sell your boots. They're mostly holes now anyway. You find a quiet spot to sit, out of the way of the growing grumbles around the paymaster's table. Some men are outright shouting now. Others just walk away, hollow-eyed, muttering about back pay from 2 campaigns ago. Quirky tidbit, Roman soldiers were often paid in coin, but that didn't mean they got to keep it. Taxes, equipment fees, and bribes ate up most of it. Delayed pay was common, sometimes by months or years. Someone tosses a coin into the dirt. Another man starts a round of dice nearby, as if to prove that luck is kinder than payroll. You consider joining, but you're too tired. Instead, you inspect your few remaining coins. You hide them deep in your pouch, then deeper. Trust is low today. A coin dropped on the ground will vanish faster than a centurion's good mood. The commander walks by, pretending not to hear the muttering. He says something about glory being its own reward. No one claps. You glance over at the equipment tent. Your shield has a crack. Your tunic is held together with a prayer and 3 stitches. Maybe you can trade a coin or 2 for new boots, or a needle and thread, or maybe, just maybe, something good to eat. But even as you think it, your stomach twists. The stew you ate yesterday is staging a rebellion. You shuffle toward the medical tent, where the healer offers you a charcoal biscuit and a judgmental stare. Spoiled meat, he says, after sniffing your breath. You nod, clutching your stomach. He gives you a second biscuit. You'll be fine by nightfall, he says. He doesn't sound confident. You spend the afternoon not spending your money. You hold it like it might grow. Like if you stare long enough, it'll turn into gold. Or soup. Nearby, a soldier offers to trade one of his coins for your dry cloak. You consider it. Your back is already damp from the morning rain, and your bedroll's moldy again. But no, you hold on to the cloak, and the coins, and your rapidly fading sense of optimism. Historians still argue whether ancient soldiers were well compensated. On paper, some were, but in practice, you were paid just enough to survive and not quite enough to leave. It's part of the system. Keep them hungry. Keep them obedient. That night, around the fire, the talk is all about coins. Who got shorted? Who bribed the paymaster? Who's hiding a gold piece in their boot and planning to disappear during the next march? Someone laughs and says, "We should all quit." No one laughs with him. You sleep with your pouch tucked under your arm, one eye open. Because pay is one thing, but trust? That's priceless. The march is slower these days, not because the terrain is worse, though it is, but because you are worse. Your legs ache in new places, Your back complains with every shift of your pack, and your left foot, you're pretty sure, has developed a permanent cramp that will be passed down to your grandchildren, genetically. You limp more than you walk now. So does half the unit. The sharp, disciplined rhythm of early campaigns is gone. Now it's more of a shuffle, a dragging procession of grunts and quiet curses, and the occasional yelp when someone steps on a rock. But today, you pass through something unexpected. A village. Small, mostly empty, but alive. Chickens peck at the roadside. Children stare at your armor like it's made of magic. A few older folks nod respectfully, or maybe fearfully, as you pass. And you realize this is where you might end up. Retirement. It sounds noble, doesn't it? After years of marching, fighting, sleeping on rocks, and eating questionable bean paste, you finally get to retire. Maybe some land, a little house, a goat, if you're lucky. Except, you look around and realize it's not as glorious as the old stories promised. That soldier leaning against the wall with a cane used to be a commander. Now he carves spoons for trade. The one limping along the road with a dented helmet and one tooth left served 20 years, got a plot of marshland and a handshake. You pass an old man with a faded tattoo on his forearm, unit numbers worn like a brand. He doesn't salute, just stares. You nod, and he nods back. Quiet understanding. Because here's the truth. Ancient military retirement is mostly survival. If you live long enough, and if the state remembers you exist, you might receive a bit of land, usually on the frontier where no one else wants to live. You're expected to defend it, of course. Free security for the empire. You'll get no doctor, no pension, unless the state is feeling particularly generous, and no real peace. Just a hut, some soil, maybe a wife, maybe not, maybe just a shovel and time, and the memories. So many memories. You imagine it, waking up without a commander yelling, without marching orders, without the looming fear of battle. But then, you imagine the quiet. Too much quiet. You're not sure which is worse. Someone once told you, when the drums stop, the ghosts get louder. You understand now. Quirky fact, Roman soldiers were often promised land upon retirement. The reality? Many were sent to newly conquered or unstable regions to settle and secure the area. Essentially, still working for the empire, just without the armor. You stop by a stall selling dried apples. The vendor offers you one for a coin. You hesitate, then you hand one over. You chew slowly, savoring the sweet, leathery taste. It's the best thing you've eaten in weeks. Later, you help set up camp near the village. Not quite in it. Soldiers and civilians mix poorly when food is short and tempers are long, but close enough to hear dogs barking and smell bread baking. One of the veterans starts talking about retirement again. He's already drawing sketches of his future villa in the dirt with a stick. It looks like a slightly crooked shed with a goat inside. Another man jokes he'll open a tavern. Just me and a barrel, he says, and the first customer gets a story and a drink. You laugh, quietly. It hurts your ribs. That night, you lie under the stars, blanket tucked under your chin, staring up at the sky as the fire crackles low. You think about the years ahead. Will your name be remembered? Will someone tell your story? Or will you just become another old man in a quiet village, muttering about wars no one else remembers? You don't know, but you do know this. If you make it through, if you retire with all your limbs and at least one good tooth, if you find a piece of land and a place to sit, you'll still be watching the road, just in case they call you back. Your camp wakes slowly this morning. No horns, no bellowed orders. Just the sound of pots clinking, boots dragging, and a few groans that sound like they escaped from a haunted temple. The fires are low, the sky is soft with early light, and even your commander looks tired. Today is a rare thing, a day off. Sort of. There's no such thing as a real day off in the ancient military, but once in a while, when the weather is calm and no enemy banners flap on the horizon, they let you rest. Not because they're generous, because even the toughest men can only march, fight, and bleed for so long before they collapse. So today, you breathe. You stretch your limbs slowly, feeling every ache like it's checking in to say hello. Your ankles crack, your knees protest. You roll your shoulders and let your armor rest in a pile for once. And then you get to work on yourself. You grab your kit, whetstone, thread, wax, a busted buckle, and that one spoon that's always trying to give you a splinter. You find a seat near the fire pit and start the slow, meditative business of repair. Because everything you own is broken, or nearly. Your tunic has holes in places that shouldn't have holes. You stitch them with careful fingers, even though your needle is dull and your patience is thinner than your blanket. You sharpen your sword until the edge feels honest again. You polish your helmet with a cloth so worn it's basically a suggestion of a rag. Someone nearby is trying to fix his boots with strips of goat leather and curses. Another is sewing a patch shaped like a fish onto his cloak. For luck, apparently. You don't ask. Quirky tidbit. Ancient soldiers were responsible for most of their own gear maintenance. The army gave you weapons, yes, but if they broke, your problem. Clever soldiers learned to repair, scavenge, or trade. You take a break and wander through the camp. There's music, faint and clumsy. A reed pipe, a makeshift drum, and someone singing in a cracked but cheerful voice. You smile. It's off-key, but it feels like music. A dice game is in full swing near the supply cart. You watch for a moment as two men argue whether a 6 or a 7 wins. You don't correct them. Let them believe in whatever keeps them sane. Someone's carving wood nearby, little figurines. One's a soldier with a crooked spear. Another's a pig. You don't know why, but you want the pig. You find a spot under a tree and sit. It's quiet. The breeze moves gently. You pull out your canteen, take a long sip of water that tastes like old leather and hope, and lean back. For a moment, it's almost peaceful. Almost. You close your eyes and let your mind wander. You think of home, if you had one, or what it might look like if you ever get back. You imagine a place with soft beds, warm meals, and no one yelling at you to dig a trench. You imagine silence, not the tense silence of pre-battle, but the kind that comes after a full day, when the sky turns golden and the world forgets to be cruel for a while. You hear laughter nearby, real laughter. A sound you haven't heard properly in weeks. You open your eyes and see 2 soldiers mock wrestling, one trying to pin the other with a loaf of bread. You snort. Even now, especially now, humor is a shield stronger than any piece of iron. Someone offers you a boiled egg. You accept it like a holy gift. It's small, dry, and a little overcooked, but it's the best thing you've eaten in days. You hear someone say, "This might be the last quiet day for a while." They're probably right. You feel it in the air, something building, a tension under the surface. New orders are coming, a campaign, a skirmish, maybe a full battle. You can sense it in the way the officers speak in shorter sentences, in the way maps stay unrolled. But not today. Today, your sword stays sheathed. Your shield leans against a tree like it's napping. Your boots rest beside the fire, steaming gently. You leave your pack half unbuckled, just to see what it feels like to breathe without weight on your spine. Historians still argue whether these days off were truly restful or just tactical pauses. Either way, they were golden, fleeting, priceless. As the sun sets, the sky goes lavender. Smoke rises lazily from cook fires. Someone strums a lyre. Another tells a story you've heard 5 times, but you still listen like it's new. You lie down, arms behind your head, staring up through the tree branches. The stars begin to appear, slowly, patiently, like they're waiting for you to look up and remember how vast the world really is. Tomorrow, you'll march again. Tomorrow, you'll lift the armor, feel the familiar weight of duty. But tonight you're just a man in the dirt, listening to laughter, holding your breath in the quiet, remembering what it's like to be human. And now, the campfire burns low. The laughter has quieted into murmurs. The dice are put away. The music fades, its final note still floating gently on the wind, like a feather taking its time to land. You lie still, the hard earth under your back somehow softer tonight. Maybe because your body's too tired to care. Maybe because for once, no part of you is bracing for a blow. The stars above blink slowly, calmly. There's a rhythm to them, like the sky itself is breathing. Slow inhales, slow exhales. You match your own breath to theirs. Inhale, exhale. Your eyes flutter, heavy now. Your body, though aching, feels like it's settling. Not in pain, but in place. A kind of stillness that feels earned. The sounds of the camp settle into the softest hum, crackling wood, a far-off cough, the low murmur of 2 friends sharing a secret. The world is smaller now, wrapped in warmth, surrounded by firelight and familiar smells, smoke, cloth, worn leather, and the faintest sweetness of something cooking too long, but cared for all the same. You're not marching, you're not training, you're not surviving, you're just being. And in that stillness, you let go, not of the memories, not of the hardships, but of the weight you carry when you're awake. Let it all rest now. You've made it through another day in a world where most don't. Sleep, soldier. Your watch is over, at least for tonight.